On, on this video, I would like to do a summary of rules for weak verbs. I've gone through in several videos dealing with weak verbs and how to parse weak verbs. And now I would like to do a summary of parsing guides for weak verbs. Let's start with the pay noon. The key point here is assimilation and doubling. Take the verb natan, he gave, in the imperfect. Yitain comes from yintain, where the noon has assimilated into the tav. He will give. Secondly, pay yod. The yod is retained in a historically pay yod verb in the imperfect. An example would be yitab. He will be good. From yatab, that yod was always historically there. Or yinak, for example, he will, from the verb to suck, to give suck, that yod is historically there. Then you have pay vav verbs, originally where the vav elides then, and what you have, an example would be yashab, to sit. Yav shave, he will sit, became yeshav, where the vav elides and you have compensatory lengthening under the first radical of the root, or first consonant of the root. Number 4, pay guttural. You have the composite shava appearing under the guttural, which leads to a corresponding pathak, for example, under the prefix consonant, like ya azov instead of yizov, that hurried pathak, the pathak part of that shifts under the yod, and we have ya azov. And by the way, you can follow me as I'm talking through my grammar that can be found on Google Books under the title, The Person and Work of Christ Jesus through Hebrew and Aramaic Grammar in the Torah, the Prophets, and the Writings. So I'm continuing then on page 25. That would be the grammatical, basic grammar is found at the beginning of that work. So let me move on from the pay guttural to the pay aleph, where the first letter is an aleph. And the key here, yomer, is the example we're using. And I'm suggesting historically it would have been possibly ya'amer becoming yomer. Dissimilation then appears to be the key in the cow imperfect with an o vowel then following the prefix. Yomer, ya'amer, possibly changing to yomer. And those pay aleph verbs will always have that holem following the, let's say, the prefix, whether it's a yod or a tav, depending on what person you're looking at. Then number 6, we have ayin guttural. That's where the middle weak, we call them middle weak verbs, where the middle consonant is a guttural. And the key here is compensatory lengthening. So PL becomes pay L. That is, the hirik changes to a tseri because we cannot double the ayin here. We cannot double a guttural. But if you have a perfect, let's say shiber, he crushed, for example, there it's an I vowel. But when the guttural appears in the middle radical or the middle consonant, it cannot be doubled, so you compensate for that by what is called compensatory lengthening, from a hirik to a tseri. Number 7, You have your lamed hey verb, where the final hey will elide or drop out, especially in the jussive form, and the I vowel will appear in the imperfect in these lamed hey. Because the lamed hey verbs were historically probably, in my understanding, lamed yod, or final yod form. So an example of the imperfect in the jussive would be yahi, where the hey has elided, uh, let him be or let it be, and in the imperfect, yeah, he will be in the imperfect. And here again, the segol is preferred rather than yishmor, the oval. And that's probably because it could be because historically it would have been a final yod, which prefers a segol prior to it. And then we have your lamed guttural verb. That's where you have a pathak preferred in the vowel before the guttural. An example would be yishma instead of yishmur. And I'm using the verb shama to hear. And the ayin prefers the guttural or the pathak rather than the whole. And then finally we have ayin vav and ayin yod form. Middle weak, either vav or yod, where the vav and the yod weaken in the vowels. Under the prefix, then, the pathak lengthens to a comet by, again, compensatory lengthening. Example would be yakum, he will arise, from yikrum, where that vav becomes so weak, it changes to yikrum, and then we lengthen to compensate under the yod from a hirik to a comet. Another example would be yasim, he will place, from what possibly was yasyim, where the yod becomes weak, and we lengthen the pathak to a comet under the prefix yod, becoming yasim, he will place, because the middle vav and yod drop out, or become weak, I should say, and in the perfect, the middle vav and yod drop out completely, kavam becoming kam, and sim, sayim, becoming sam. So all of this I've tried to summarize on the final summary on pages 25 and 26 in my grammar, which can be found under that title, as we said, the person and work of Christ Jesus through Hebrew and Aramaic grammar in the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. And my great passion is to encourage people to learn grammar. I think it is critically important in reading an ancient Hebrew text. And so I think we need to work at the grammar as well as reading widely, reading, along with grammar. In other words, I think both are needed. And of course, as a Christian minister, my goal that I would share with those that are pastors or Christians that studying Hebrew, I think, is essential to understanding more about Christ, seen through the New Testament lenses, especially in what I would call the Christological text of the Hebrew Bible read through the New Testament camera. So I just encourage people to learn grammar as well as reading. We need both. We need to read, and we need to grammar. And so it's a combination. And I think it's critically important. Many times, Hebrew gets a short can I say, hardly any at times in seminaries. And it's important to keep at Hebrew and Greek because Hebrew, that was the Bible that Jesus went to. When he said, search the scriptures, it's about me. And he took the Torah, the prophets, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, and found himself in Luke 24. So what greater goal in life than to study the Hebrew scriptures, both reading, and grammar, to put it together to see Christ, to take an Emmaus walk, can we say, through an understanding of the Hebrew scriptures. The Lord bless in your study of Hebrew.